It's a wet Tuesday, late, and the blue and reds fill your mirror on a road you've driven 1,000 times. You pull over, window down, license out, hands at 10 and 2. The torch beam crawls across the glass, past your face, into the back seat, and settles on the lock, then friendly as anything. Do us a favour and unlock the door for me. Your fingers are already moving to the button. Stop them there. That line isn't curiosity. It's a trained move with a job to do. And the job is getting you to hand over something the law can't take on its own. In New South Wales, refusing the wrong thing at this window can cost you $5,500. But opening that door the wrong way can cost you far more. And you won't learn which until months later in a courtroom. The patrol car idles behind you, and a second officer drifts along the passenger side without hurry. Your finger is still resting on that lock button. Leave it there a second, because here's the thing nobody tells you about this stop. It cost him nothing to make it. Between random breath testing powers and license checks, police in this country can pull over any car, anytime, for no reason at all. And that's not a loophole. That's the design, which means the encounter can't grow on its own. It has no fuel. The only thing that feeds it is what you add. Your words, your consent, your hand on that lock. Sit with the scale of it. In the year to June 2023, NSW police made contact with drivers through random breath tests, alone 3,727,999 times. Nearly 4 million roadside encounters, one state, 1 year. Each one a blank line in a notebook, waiting to be filled. And of all those millions, barely one driver in 200 ever returns a positive. The machine clears almost everyone. The file, when there is one, gets built somewhere else. The stop is free, the case is not. And the case is built from you. So the first thing he reaches for isn't a demand. It's a favour. He still hasn't looked at the license in his hand. He's looking at you. And here's the ladder you're standing on. 3 rungs, 1 sentence. You unlock the door, a glance becomes a search, and a search becomes a court date where your own "yeah, no worries" is Exhibit A. That's how fast a routine Tuesday turns. So here's my promise to you. By the end of this video, you'll have 1 sentence, calm, polite, and completely lawful, that closes this whole encounter down without refusing a single thing you're actually required to do. And stay with me, because there's a trap folded into that promise. There's exactly one thing at this window you can never refuse, where the refusal itself is the crime, and getting it wrong costs you everything the sentence was protecting. I'll show you precisely where that line sits. Quick word on who's telling you this. There's no invented career here, just plain English Australian law, checked against the statutes. Every section sitting in the description so you can read it yourself. And this isn't anti-police. Most officers are professional and well-trained. That's exactly why you should be too. Start with what you must do, because getting this right is the ground everything else stands on. You must stop. Failing to pull over when directed is an offence on its own. You must identify yourself, your name, your address, your licence, under section 175 of the Road Transport Act, and under sections 11 and 12 of LEP-RA, where police reasonably suspect you can help them investigate an offence. You must submit to a breath test and to a saliva test every single time. Your body has no right to silence at the roadside, and you must obey a lawful direction. Refuse one, and under section 39 of LEP-RA, you're looking at 50 penalty units, $5,500, or 12 months. He owes you something back too, under section 202, his name, his place of duty, and the reason, and for a direction. before he gives it. Now hear this, because it saves people from disaster. There are no magic words. I'm a traveller, not a driver. I don't consent to being governed. That stuff has failed in every Australian court it's ever entered. It's not law. It's a fine, sometimes a charge. Cross the border and the frame holds, but the numbers move. Victoria writes the duty to obey directions into Section 59 of its Road Safety Act. Queensland stops you under Section 60 of the PPRA and punishes ignoring a direction under Section 791. Comply with your body. Protect only what's yours to protect. Because everything the law can't force lives in the very next move, the door. Do us a favour and pop the door for me. Listen to the shape of that. A favour. Not an order, not a demand. A favour offered gently, because gentle is exactly what it needs to be. Here's why. Opening that door yourself is consent. And consent is the one key that unlocks a search he might have no other power to run. In DPP versus Leonard, the New South Wales Supreme Court put it plainly. Where a person validly consents, police need not establish reasonable suspicion at all. None. And years earlier, Justice Kirby said the same thing from the other side. The giving of a proper consent can do away with the need to form a reasonable suspicion. Read those together and the picture is stark. The grounds he's missing, your hand can supply for free with one small click. So watch the wrong response, because it's the most natural thing in the world. Yeah, no worries. The lock pops up. And a search that had no legal footing 1 second ago is now completely lawful. Not because the law changed, but because you authorised it. That click is the yes. So if opening it is a yes, what happens when you don't? That's the moment the favour hardens into an order. Step out of the car. Now it's a direction, and directions feel absolute, but this one is quietly conditional. Police give it under Section 38 of LEPRA, and Section 38 authorises nothing on its own. It's a parasite. It only lives by riding on a real power underneath it. An arrest, a test, a search on reasonable suspicion. No power beneath it, no lawful direction. And Australia's own judges had to spend an entire appeal mapping this exact moment. In State of New South Wales versus Exton, a driver named Trent Exton was told to get out, and a court first awarded him $38,072 for false imprisonment, before the Court of Appeal overturned it, holding that a direction to get out of a car without more is not an arrest and not a detention. Justice Bass 10 drew the line carefully. Words carrying a threat of compulsion can amount to a total deprivation of liberty, but they usually require being told not to move or to come somewhere and stay, so the direction alone tells you almost nothing. On its own, it's a blank, and a blank gets filled in later by someone who isn't you. Watch the wrong response here, the silent leap. Door open, feet on the road, not one question asked, which reads in the notebook as agreement to everything that follows. Your only pen out here is a question, and there are exactly two worth the ink. But before the questions that help you, the questions that don't. Where are you headed tonight? You answer, and that opens the next. Where have you come from? Which opens the next. Whose car is this? Which opens the last. Anything in here I should know about? Feel how each answer swings the next door open. This is the doors sequence, and every one you walk through writes a line in the notebook, a timeline in your own voice, a third person named by you, a hint of grounds handed over gift wrapped. None of it feels like a trap, because none of it sounds like one. It sounds like small talk on a wet night. Here's the asymmetry that should decide how you play it. Under Section 89 of the Evidence Act, your silence at this window generally cannot be used against you. Not as guilt, not as suspicion, not as anything. Your words, though, are permanent and they're testable. The wrong response is 4 polite answers: venue, duration, timing, and a reason to look harder, assembled by you free of charge in under a minute. Say you left at 11, a camera 2 suburbs over says 11:20, and an honest slip of memory now reads like a lie you chose to tell. Say nothing, and there's nothing to test. And the more you feed that notebook, the more the last question, the grounds question, has something to bite on. I've got grounds to search the car. This is where people fold, because it sounds like the end. It isn't. In New South Wales, Section 36 of LEPRR does let police search your vehicle with no warrant, but only on reasonable suspicion, and only for real things: stolen goods, drugs, a dangerous article, evidence of an offence. And that suspicion has to exist before the search, not get discovered by it. The bar has a name. In R versus Rondo, the Court of Criminal Appeal, through Justice Smart, said it. A reasonable suspicion involves less than a reasonable belief, but more than a possibility. And there must be some factual basis for it. Less than belief, more than a hunch, and never arbitrary. Now the no-win frame the moment is built on. Talk too much, and the notebook reads nervous, over-explaining. Go stony and silent, and it reads evasive, uncooperative. The account gets written either way. The only thing you control is whether you hand him the grounds to write it. And here's your shield from Street versus Bauer. Robustly refusing consent can never by itself become his grounds. The no is free. So the wrong response: I'm already out, may as well let him look, gives away the one thing he couldn't take, which is exactly why the video you watched last week, the American one, will hurt you here. Because almost everything you think you know came from over there, and over there it's a different planet. What actually does the work in this country is smaller and quieter. Consent withheld, and the power named. Here's the honest part: because this channel doesn't paper over the gaps at a bare breath test, clean reading, none of the real powers in play, whether they can even order you out, is genuinely unsettled law. Which is exactly why your move never depends on winning that argument on the gravel at midnight. What actually does the work in this country is smaller and quieter. Consent withheld, and the power named. Here's the honest part: because this channel doesn't paper over the gaps at a bare breath test, clean reading, none of the real powers in play, whether they can even order you out, is genuinely unsettled law. Which is exactly why your move never depends on winning that argument on the gravel at midnight. And cross a border and it shifts again. In Queensland, Section 31 of the PPRA lets police detain, in the section's own words, the vehicle and anyone in it. And Western Australia runs the densest roadside net in the nation. 9,647 breath tests for every 10,000 licence holders in 2024. This video speaks New South Wales. We're getting close to the exact words now, because the real danger was never the door. It's the question that lands once you're standing beside it. You're out. Calm. And his voice goes a shade warmer. Here are the words. Say them with me, slowly, once. Officer, if you've got the power, I'll open up and follow every direction. I'm not resisting. But I don't consent to a search. and I won't unlock it just because I'm asked. What's the power you're relying on, and am I free to go? Again, because the second time is the one that stays. Officer, if you've got the power, I'll open up and follow every direction. I'm not resisting, but I don't consent to a search, and I won't unlock it just because I'm asked. What's the power you're relying on, and am I free to go? Screenshot this. Say it out loud once tonight, keys in your hand, so it arrives as memory, not invention. Now look at what each piece is doing. I'll open up and follow every direction. I'm not resisting. Satisfies every must on the REH chord and kills the word uncooperative before a pen can reach it. I don't consent, and I won't unlock it just because I'm asked, draws the one line at the door and keeps your consent out of his case. What's the power you're relying on? Invites him to perform his own section 202 duty on his own camera. And am I free to go makes your status say itself out loud. Delivery is half of it. Calm, polite, flat. You're declining a survey, not making a stand. The most forgettable driver of his shift is the one who drives home. And now he pushes, because they always push. Push one is the oldest line in the book. If you've got nothing to hide, why not just open it up? And you give it back to him, word for word, nothing added. Officer, if you've got the power, I'll open up and follow every direction. I'm not resisting. But I don't consent to a search, and I won't unlock it just because I'm asked. What's the power you're relying on? And am I free to go? Push 2 has an edge. You're making this harder than it needs to be. Same words, same tone. Third time you've heard it now. Muscle memory, which was the point. Picture how this usually goes, because it usually goes one way. Blue lights, window down. Unlock it for me? Officer, if you've got the power, I'll open up. I'm not resisting, but I don't consent. And what's the power? A beat. Just a license check, mate. Check. No worries. Here's everything. The torch makes one bored pass across the back seat and finds nothing to write. Righto, on your way. Nothing in that was defiance. It was a driver who did every lawful thing asked of him and handed over not one thing extra. Remember, from Street versus Bauer, his push can't turn your no into his grounds. But there's a fork just past this point, and one arm of it is the warning from the very start of this video. Am I under arrest or am I free to go? Ask it plainly, because Exton is what gives those words teeth. A direction alone isn't custody, so make the status declare itself out loud. And now the trap I promised you, paid in full. You can refuse questions. You can refuse a search. But there is one thing you can never refuse, and it's the test. In New South Wales, refuse the breath analysis and you're sentenced as if you'd blown the worst number on the machine. Up to $3,300, 18 months, and an automatic 3-year disqualification. In Victoria, refusal is a mandatory 2-year loss of licence under Section 49 of the Road Safety Act. In Queensland, Section 80 of the Transport Act treats it as high-range drink driving. Get this backwards, go silent on the one thing you're compelled to do, and the refusal outprices everything the sentence was built to protect. 2 edge cases before we close. Your passenger can be directed out where a power reaches them. Queensland's Section 31 literally says anyone in it. But their identity is owed only on genuine grounds, not on a hunch. And the saliva wipe is its own animal. It tests presence, not impairment. And that's a whole other trap for a whole other night. 2 people never to become: the over-explainer, who narrates his entire evening and gift wraps the brief, and the roadside lawyer, who argues Exton and rondo at a man already reaching for the door. An argument that wins in a courtroom and loses on the bit you men every time. And carry this number with you. After a drug dog flagged someone, the 2006 New South Wales Ombudsman review found nothing on about 3/4 of the people then searched. The grounds are wrong most of the time. Put it all together, and that door stays shut on his case. Every one of these, the favour, the step out, the search, the fork, and exactly what changes when you cross a state line, I've gathered in a book called Know Your Rights, linked below, waiting for the night you weren't expecting. Let's put it all together. Officer, if you've got the power, I'll open up and follow every direction. I'm not resisting, but I don't consent to a search and I won't unlock it just because I'm asked. What's the power you're relying on, and am I free to go? Two things you can never hold back: who you are and the test. Everything else is yours to keep. This is general information, not legal advice. Laws differ between states and they change. If your night has gone past a stop, the video ends and the lawyer begins, and legal aid exists in every state. So subscribe, not for luck, but for the next window, the next door, so nobody in your family ever opens up without knowing what it costs. And when the knock lands on your front door instead of your car window, when the voice through the screen says, "We've had a call about you," the entire rule book changes at the doormat. That video's on your screen now. Back on the wet highway, the torch beam slides off your glass and finds the next car back. Your window rises. The lock is still down. The door never opened, and the road opens up ahead of you. You drive.